Welcome to the WWSD podcast. We are sponsored by Collector's Maze. You can check them out at collectorsmaze.com for all things related to fandom. I'm your host, Josh, and as always, I'm joined by my buddy, Seamus. How's it going, Seamus?
It's going great.
Cool. So, Seamus, we actually have a special guest tonight. It's hard to imagine this is our 26th episode, and this is our first comic writer. But I'm proud to introduce Tony Karnowski.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's awesome. So Tony is actually the current writer for a pretty gnarly webcomic series called Pound. He's also written a few novels, Forgotten Prophecies, Path of Darkness, and Cameron and the Grimm. And he's actually pretty cool as well. He's a drummer, so that's pretty out there. So we're excited to have him tonight. Tony, it's a real pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Guys, thanks again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So how'd you get into writing comics?
Actually, it started on Reddit. Of all places. Yeah, I actually posted a ad on one of the comic book collab subreddits, and Orlando reached out to me, and it kind of went from there. So,
give us a rundown of what Pound is to our listeners, because I'm sure majority of them never heard of this web series. So we want to kind of hook them in. Give us the rundown, like the big 10,000 foot overview.
Okay, awesome. Pound is a webcomic that is based in the future where there are superpowers, but they come at a cost. Basically, everybody that has a power also has this metahuman degenerative disease that requires them to take medicine in order to counteract those effects. But the only way to get the medicine is to partake in the leading entertainment industry, which is the World Fighting League. So basically, they make these superheroes fight against each other in order to get their medicine. And that's the overall premise of the story. You've got a guy named, so the main protagonist is a guy named Leo Guerrero, who is a young fighter who kind of comes up through the ranks. And he also has the disease, but there's kind of a wrench thrown in there because his little brother, Dario, has the disease, but doesn't seem to have any superpowers. And the only way that you can get the medicine is to fight, but he doesn't have anything that he can use to combat this. So what Leo has to do is start going into underground fights to get more Pound so that he can treat his brother too in order to keep him from succumbing. Go ahead.
I was saying, so Pound is the medicine that they, that's the name of the medicine?
Correct. Right. That's the name of the medicine that is used to keep the bad effects of the MDD kind of at bay.
And this is an optional thing, like you choose if you want to get superpowers?
No, it just kind of happens. And that's one of the things that kind of comes out as we go through the story. We find out how and why that's taking place. But, in the beginning of the series, it's a complete mystery. People just kind of wake up one day and it's, I don't want to liken it to mutants necessarily, but it's, from Marvel, but it's that same kind of idea where people just kind of wake up one day and they've got superpowers and
they awaken their X gene.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So,
is it genetic in the series, or is it some other thing?
If we're going into spoilers, it's some other thing.
Yeah, we can refrain from spoilers as much as possible. Yeah. I would like people to look into your comic and read it. So I don't want to spoil too much, but
appreciate that.
So you weren't actually one of the original creators though. So you like how is that like taking that on? Like, is Orlando like kind of driving it and kind of like telling you what he wants to do with it?
Kind of in the beginning, I think that's kind of how it started. So as you said, it was originally created by Orlando, who is the artist, and then a guy named Luke Lancaster. They worked together on a series before this called The Bad Guys, which was a lot of fun. And they actually, with that series, they won a contest with Webtoon and PAL Comics, which is how they got their foot in the door there. But I guess after the first season, Luke didn't have time for it anymore and couldn't do it, had other obligations. And so I took over. And when we first started, that first season that I did, which was season 2, Luke actually did the broad strokes, like the overall beats for the series or for the season, right? This is the overall where we see the story going. I kind of stepped in, kind of added my touches here and there. And then once the editors at Webtoons approved it, at that point I moved forward. And at that point it was pretty much all me. I mean, obviously Orlando came in and had his say on what was, this passes, this doesn't pass. But for the most part, it was mostly me. I think they've been very cool in letting me kind of run with it, right? But then by the time we got to season 3, Luke was completely not involved with it, and it was pretty much all my direction. But I mean, that isn't to say that it wasn't solely me. I'm not trying to say that. Orlando was definitely involved, and Ethan, the editor with Webtoons, was also involved with it too. But the majority of that season, I think, was mapped out by me as well.
Okay. So how different is have you done comic book writing in the past, or is this the first one?
This is really my first real gig doing it, and I've done a few things here and there, like I said on Reddit. I would do a few freelance editing jobs here and there for people. I did that for maybe a year before I picked this up, so I can't really liken it to a traditional webcomic or even just a print comic. We work. It's kind of, the production is pretty hectic on it, really. I mean, we've got to crank out an entire episode a week, which for me is not nearly as much work as it is for Orlando. I mean, he's cranking out at least 40 panels a week, and it's kind of grueling, So, but it's a lot of fun too, though.
So you're saying like in seasons. So like, how long is a season typically?
Well, for Pound right now, we do about 30 episodes per season. However, there are I think they've moved to a model where seasons are typically a little closer to 50 episodes now. They try to get it to where a series is putting out pretty much year round, right? Because because before, I think what they found was that with if there was too long of a gap in between, the readership just dropped off. And I feel like Webtoons is one of those that if it's not kind of in your face the whole time, you kind of forget about it. And I think that's just because there's so many good series on it. I mean, it's really, I don't know, guys, if you guys have spent any time on it. I had a little bit of trouble getting used to the vertical scroll, because I'm an old school comic guy,
flipping pages.
Exactly. I want it in my hand and flipping pages, right? Yeah. But once I kind of got used to the vertical scroll method, I mean, there's all kinds of great stuff on there, and it's free for the most part. I mean, you can pay for the fast pass if you want to, but it's free. And it's in your pocket.
Yeah. So the seasons and all, like you said, you're every week. So are you not able just to do like an entire season at once? And then they release it every week?
Well, I think that depends on the series, right, and how you're doing it now. So and what your contract entails, right? And there's two different types of content too. There's the canvas, and then there's the originals, which I'm on the original side, which is where it's actually Webtoons that's producing it, right? Or paying for it to be produced. Whereas Canvas is more, just creator-based. People are just putting it up there on their own, and there's not necessarily any financial gain for them as far as that goes. Webtoons doesn't have any investment in it, if you will, right? But so if you're on the original side, whatever your contract states, that's going to probably dictate what your production schedule is, right? Now, typically what they want to do, though, because one of the models that they have is the fast pass, which basically, they put out one episode every week, but if a series is included in the fast pass, then you can pay to have up to 3, and some series it's maybe as many as 6 episodes ahead of what everybody else is getting. So we're actually way further ahead. We're probably 8 or 9 weeks ahead.
Okay.
Well, actually, let me think about that, because I think we just released. Yeah, that's about right. Because I think we just released 13 on Monday, and we just turned in 22, like episode 22 this week. So we're about 9 or 10 ahead of where we're actually releasing.
Okay.
And you said you guys were on the Canvas side. Is that what you said?
No, we're on the original.
You're on the original side. So you guys have a contract with Webtoons, and
we do. Yes.
They're paying for production, everything. That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, man. Webtoons it's a cool company, man. I really didn't know anything about them until this gig came along, and it's cool. They're, in case you guys don't know anything about them, they're actually owned by a company called Line. Which, do you guys know them? Are you familiar with that? So no. Line is basically, the only way I can think to describe that is it's basically, from my understanding, and I could be wrong about this, but the way I understand it, it is basically the Facebook of South Asia. And it's huge. It's a very, very popular social media app, but they own Webtoons, And so I think part of what they do is use the webtoons culture to kind of drive people to line, and it's kind of, you know, it's this homogenous sort of ecosystem is what it seems like. But
so
yeah.
does Webtoons actually own like your comic, like in that sense? Do they have ownership of it, or are you able to produce it?
They're actually more like Image comics in the sense that they are all about the creator keeping the IP.
Okay.
Cool.
So, which is awesome. I love that about them. Now they do take a small stake, I think, you know, I mean, you know, because they're putting forth some money, and basically it's like anything else where, you know, you have to make back what they paid for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if you want to see anything beyond that, you have to make that back. But it's just like any other contract that you're going to have in the creative world, basically. Right. I think I kind of went off on a tangent there. So sorry, bring me back to where we were.
You're cool. But like the point of my question was like, are you able, I know this is all webcomic based, but if you want to like do like a Kickstarter to actually do a printed volume of your comic, are you legally able to do that, or do they own like the comic in that sense, like all reproduction rights?
So and again, this may vary from contract to contract, so I can't speak for everybody. And from what I understand, with Pound, this is the case as well, because the contract is actually with Orlando. I have a separate work for hire contract with him because, you know, I wasn't one of the original creators. But my understanding of it is that 18 months after the initial publication date, right? So like when they put it on the website the first day, we have 18 months. And then after that, we can publish it in any way we want to, right? So if we want to put it as a graphic novel, we can do that. And it's, you know, so and in this case, Orlando owns it, right? Because it's his IP. But yeah, no. So that's another thing that I love about it too, is that it's they're not tying you down, and they're not trying to take ownership of it. Basically, what they're doing is claiming the digital print rights for the first 18 months. You know, and it's basically you can't put it anywhere else online. They want only to be able to be the only people on the web that they're presenting it, which seems fair to me.
Yeah, for 18 months, that's really reasonable.
It's not bad at all. Do you guys have any plans to put it into another medium?
We've talked about it, and as far as I know, Orlando does plan on putting it into 3-volume trades. I think is what he's planning on doing. But I don't really want to speak for him. I mean, we kind of talked about it, and I think that's what he's talking about doing. And I'm hoping, because I really want to have it on my shelf, you know. But yeah, as far as I know, yes, but I can't say definitively. So.
Okay. Now the 18-month thing, does that prevent like other mediums? Let's just say you guys sign like a Netflix deal for like a TV series. Would that have any issues with that?
Again, I think that's something that's covered in the contract. It may vary. But from what I understand, what happens at that point is they get depending on when it happens, like if it happens within like the first year or whatever, I think they get a stake in it. And if they help negotiate it, then they definitely get a stake in it. Right. So, but as far as I know, no, I mean, like and especially if it's after that first year, because I think they have I'm not a lawyer, so I like the right to purchase, right to option, something like that. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I think that they get a period of time where they get first say on what happens, or not first say, but they get a say in what happens. And then after that, Orlando could do whatever he wants to. And if Netflix wants to buy it, then he can sell it to Netflix, and Webtoons doesn't, as far as I know, have any say in it. Or stake either, right? So all the proceeds would go to him as the creator.
Yeah, for sure. So the actual like comic though, like, so you're now writing for it, but is like there's still like an overall idea, like, because it's seasons of it has like Orlando like keyed out like the 12 seasons or however long it's going to be, and then you kind of just have to fill in the details. Is it like that, or are you guys kind of making up season by season?
I will say that there is an overarching arch, right? An overarching arc. We do know where we're headed, and there is an end to it. And it is a little bit filling out details, but at the same time, I think you're going to kind of get, I mean, not that I've ever worked on a series, but I imagine it's kind of similar to working on a series where you've got, we've got this many episodes. We know these are the things that have to happen to get us from point A to point B. And then there are details that have to be filled out as far as that goes. But I don't know if that answered your question necessarily, but I mean, there is an end in sight. We do know where it's headed. And it's everything that we're doing is kind of trying to get us to that point. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
because it's more like the idea of like more like a storyboard. Like, are you trying to get from like point A to like point B, or did he give you the point A to point B and you kind of just fill in everything in between? It's more from like that creative style.
Honestly, we went back and forth. I mean,
Okay.
because I think that when I took over, there wasn't really a clear ending in sight, right?
Okay.
I don't think that they, I think he and Luke were just kind of, I don't even know if it was necessarily season to season. I think it was almost week to week, honestly. They were, I think it was that close as far
Oh,
as,
wow. Yeah.
yeah. So, again, I don't want to speak for anybody, but that was my understanding of it. So guys, if I was wrong, Orlando, Luke, I'm sorry. But when we got to start on season 2, like I said, Luke kind of gave the broad outlines. And then when we really started getting into that, there was a lot of discussion between me and Orlando about what do we want to see happen? Where are we wanting this to go? And so I think we kind of had, at least for the beginning of season 2, we kind of had an idea. And I mean, Orlando definitely had like, this is one thing that absolutely has to happen at some point in this season. This is something else that absolutely has to happen. But beyond that, he let me just kind of run with it,
Okay.
which has been awesome. Cause it's like, I saw a comment on one of our episodes recently that said that, which I thought was awesome. And I really appreciated this comment. It said, this comic is a love letter to superhero comics of old. Right.
Okay.
Which
That's
it
awesome.
absolutely is, man. I mean, it's like, because I kind of went into this with the attitude of like, I don't know if I'm ever going to have an opportunity to write anything like this ever again. Right. So I'm just going to have as much fun with it as I can. Right. Because this is absolutely the kind of stuff I grew up on. And I mean, it is superheroes, but honestly, I feel like I'm trying to channel more of the G.I. Joe, the Transformers, all the cartoons, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Dragon Ball Z, stuff like that we grew up with, and try to capture that kind of spirit with it, and that's what I'm coming at it with is just trying to have fun with it and tell stories that 12-year-old me would have loved.
Now, can you technically get canceled because it's by contract? Do they just choose not to renew your contract?
They can, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I like that you guys have an end that you've planned out. And I think I really like when series does that, because it's you definitely, you're gonna give like your fans closure,
Exactly.
Pretty
Well, and
cool.
one of the things that I will say about webtoons, and to your cancellation question as well too, they want it to be a complete story, right?
Okay.
They have said that, when it comes time to cancel, we're going to give you enough time to wrap it up and make sure that you can tell the story in a way that you want it to be told. Now, I mean, if you were imagining 14 more seasons, they may say, okay, we'll
Take
give
it
you 14
easy.
episodes, right? But they will give you a chance to kind of wrap it up. And that's something I really appreciate them, because I think, as a reader of comics and stories, I want that complete closure. I want to know what happens. Right?
Absolutely.
So
Now, if they do cancel you, though, are you able to then take the series elsewhere, or do you have to wait like the 18 months?
you still are bound by that, right?
Okay.
So you and it's from the first publication date, right? So I mean, technically, you could. I mean, because it's 3 years at this point, right, that we've been putting this out, right? So if we were to get canceled tomorrow, he could run around and put it on Tapas or someplace like that if he wanted to, starting from 1 and then just until it caught up. But I mean, as long as he doesn't hit that 18-month window, he's fine.
Okay.
So can you kind of take us through like the process of how comics are written, and like what your guys' process is?
Sure. So starting at the beginning of the season, like I said, we'll kind of get together and have a discussion. A lot of times it takes place through emails, just back and forth as to.
You guys don't actually physically meet?
Well, no, because we're all over the place, man. So
Okay.
I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee. Orlando currently is in San Diego.
Okay.
Ethan, who is our editor, he's in Los Angeles. And then we've got Lester, who's our letterer. He's somewhere in Brazil. And then we've got a colorist, Sean, who does some of them. He doesn't do all of them, and he's in Colorado. So like we're kind of all over the place. But we'll, we've had a few, Zoom meetings and stuff like that. But I've never met any of these guys in person, which is weird.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is weird. Yeah.
It's a very 21st century thing, but it's also kind of awesome too.
Like in a pandemic world, it makes sense, but like I'm assuming you guys started pre-pandemic, so
yeah, exactly. I mean, it was 2018. maybe something like that. Yeah. So I mean, had been doing this for a while, but it's kind of weird, like moving to the work from home model. It wasn't really that big of a transition because I was already kind of used to it. So for me anyway, but I know of a lot of people it sucked. So it was almost, I'm a very major introvert. So it was kind of a dream come true in a way.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah. Go ahead.
So back to Seamus's question though, like the overall idea. So does Orlando come with like his ideas and he talks to you and then you kind of like formulate a story, then he draws it? Or is it like, does he draw it and you have to like kind of fill in the story?
Okay. Well, no. So yeah, so we'll talk about, kind of hash it out. Like I said, we map out the whole, this episode, this is what happens, next episode, this, all the way through all 30 episodes. Once everybody signs off on that, including Ethan from Webtoons, then I actually go through and write a 40 panel script.
Okay.
Right. And it's, and then I pass that to him and then he draws that, and that has, dialogue and everything already written in it. And then I'll send it to them. And once they sign off on it, we may do some edits. We may not, just depends on how it goes. Usually there are some suggestions. And then once that's all taken into account, Orlando draws it and finishes it and goes from there. So okay. I think he starts with go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, do you also do the dialogue of the episodes?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So, and it's weird. Like my wife, actually, when she first started like reading these, she's like, so what do you actually write in this? And it's like, it was like, well, I actually had to pull out a script and show it to her where it's like,
you write the story.
Well, and and I, to a degree too, it's like, this is what's happening in this panel, right? So, Michel grabs the dragon guy by the tail and flips him, I kind of describe the action and then it's up to Orlando to actually make that look good. Right.
So a lot of what you write, like nobody ever sees then.
Oh yeah. It's weird, man, because it's like, I'm basically writing for Orlando. Like and so like, I used to, when I first started doing it, I was like real descriptive and it's, try to write it like I was writing a novel. And I quickly realized that is a waste of my time and his time. He just wants to know muscle man grabs dragon tail, throws it, that's all he cares about basically. Right. So, and it's a little more than that, but it's, we try to keep it succinct and like I said, it's really a lot of work for him. So a lot of what I try to do is make it as easy on him and as quick for him as possible. So that
he doesn't read a novel every time.
Exactly. And he doesn't want to have to figure out what the hell is he saying here? What is happening? He just, it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Dragon Man grabs
using a lot of flowery like words and stuff like that.
Exactly. No, it's like I bet if you would look at some of my first scripts, it'd be like, what the hell, man? This was 75,000 words. What? Why?
But, a 2-panel fight scene.
Exactly right. We don't need this.
Like it was a cold winter night.
It's not quite that bad, but yeah, it's close. It's close.
Yeah. Now, as an author, like an actual writer, though, is that like disheartening to you because like you want to write like all these things?
No, it's actually
okay.
So I started writing novels because I wanted to write comics.
Okay.
And so, like in about 2002, I was playing in a horrible D&D group, and it was horrible because it was way too big. We had like 16 players.
Oh, fuck that noise.
Yeah, no, dude, it was awful. It was awful. It was basically you go and roll, and it's like, okay, guys, I'm gonna go drink for 4 hours. Wake me up, right? But so I got sick of it. And I was like, I just want to write something, and I was really deep into comics at the time, and I really wanted to write comics. And everything I found at the time, they were like, write something else. You can't really just jump into comics. You got to write something else. So start writing something. So I started writing novels. I actually went back to school, got a degree in creative writing, tried to take it fairly seriously. But all the time I wanted to write comics, and so it's like, it was actually kind of painful writing novels. Like, I don't really know, like, I don't know how to describe it. Right. But it, even though I did it, I can't say I enjoyed it. Right. I really enjoy writing comics though. Like I wake up excited about, I get to write a fucking comic today. It's going to be awesome. Right. And, but yeah, novels kind of got to a point where it felt like I was forcing myself to do something, and that's never a fun place to
it's
be,
like,
right?
like never ending homework. Right?
To a degree. Yeah. Right. Cause even when you get done with it, you're not done, right? Cause you think you got to write it again. You don't write, no novel is written once, right? You got to write it at least twice, probably 3 times. And I mean,
the revisions, yeah.
And it's exhausting. So, but I mean, that's not to say you don't do that in comics as well too, but it's just on a much tighter time frame. I don't have to be quite as, persnickety about my language, because again, I'm writing for Orlando, right? And he knows, and if he doesn't know what I'm saying, he can hit me up on, text me and say, hey, what the fuck do you mean by this, right? So, but no, I love it, man. I absolutely love it. And comics are, I guess would be the more appropriate way to say that, are and have been a big part of my life since I was a very small kid, and getting to write this, it's really kind of a dream come true for me. So hopefully it's a first step, and hopefully I'll get to keep doing it and write more and more after this. But so far it's been awesome.
That's really cool.
That's great to hear, man. Yeah,
that's
cool.
Yeah.
Definitely get to live your drem. So what actually like interests you though in comics in general? Like why comics?
I think part of it is I have ADHD, so I can get through a story kind of quick, I like that about it. I don't know, I've always loved art. I've always wanted to be an artist, but I know that I just never put enough time to get past this point, but I got to the level where I could draw just well enough to piss myself off, right? It almost looked like what I wanted it to be, but no matter what I did, I could not get it there. And I just got kind of caught up in music and other things and just kind of let it fall by the wayside and never pursued it from there. But I've always loved art. And I just, especially comic illustrations are just, I don't know, dude. So some of my earliest memories, and I'm going off on a tangent here and I apologize.
That's right.
No, this is a good tangent.
All right, cool. So one of my earliest memories is my uncle. So, all right, my dad's family is Catholic, right? So, and he was the oldest son, and his youngest brother was like, I think he's 8 years older than me. He might be 10 years older than me, right? But he was basically like more like an older brother than an uncle, right? But I remember going over there, and he had, I don't remember the number. I'm sure I'm exaggerating, but it was like 30 long boxes. Just
oh wow,
right?
Oh,
and I mean, and it was like he would not let us touch them, right? It's like, you have to prove to me that you can hold a comic correctly.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I mean, he had like, I think it was an old Archie beat up comics. Like, you got to prove to me that you can hold this correctly, right? And it was like the day that I was finally given the keys to the comic kingdom, it was like Mecca, walking in. But I don't remember not reading comics and not having comics around, and they've just always kind of been there and been a safety blanket in a way. It's like I go back to it, and I just love illustration. I don't know, man. I just love comics, dude. I can't think. What's the line? It's like I don't know, man. I don't really want to think about it right now. I'm just trying to hang with your daughter. Right? Sorry, probably showing my age there. That's from it's a misquote from Say Anything.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, sorry. It's getting late for me.
What comics did your uncle actually get you into though? What was he reading?
He did everything back then, right? But it was a lot of Batman, Batman. I remember
are we talking 80s Batman or like 50s, 60s Batman?
He had as far back as like the mid 60s. But this would have been in the 80s, right? So it was kind of everything.
Silver Age, yeah.
Right, but up to 80s stuff too, right? So I mean, I was kind of reading current stuff as well. I remember the Tick being a real standout too. Spider-Man has always been my number one. And it's just always been my favorite, right? But it was, I want to say with Eric though, my uncle, it was mostly Batman. That's what I like thinking back on it. That's what I remember most is the Batman and the Tick comics. So comedy and darkness.
Yeah.
That's what I've been chasing ever since. Yeah, it's not too bad, but yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that answered your question. Did we answer the production question? I feel like we.
I think so.
Yeah,
we hit most of it.
Is there anything else you want to add?
I mean, we have an editor, right? He does get involved in that process too, right? And so he gets the final say on everything as well. So there's that kind of adds another layer.
Has there been tension with like the editor? Like they won't let you do? Is it just for like the website? Like you can't have like X-rated stuff or
partly that?
Okay.
But it's also to kind of help with storytelling, to make sure that we're making it as palatable for the website as possible, right? Because they want us to be successful, right? So it's
it's their website as well, so they
right.
want to make sure it's nothing like off-brand.
Exactly right. So, and I mean, it is partially to make sure there's no content, because they do. I mean, I know they do allow some things, but I have noticed just reading through, and some of the ones that we've had, they'll put up a disclaimer, like extreme violence in this one, or images that may cause it unsettling. Because I think there are a lot of younger people that do read on that site, so I think they're trying to be mindful of that and trying to be pretty inclusive for everybody. That said, I have seen some pretty dark shit on that site, so it's it's a good site. There's a little bit of something for everybody. You might have to dig to find it, but there's definitely something there for
everybody. Okay. So let's talk about your actual novels, though. I'm kind of curious. What's interesting about them? Like, I know you weren't happy to do them, but
I was miserable when I wrote. No, the novels are pretty old, right? So I wrote those back. The first one, I think I wrote it came out in 2004, right?
Okay.
And it was written during the Bush years. And I was very, it was very dark times. And the book was and I was also working a corporate job that I hated. And I really was not happy at this time, right? So I think that does kind of come through in a lot of it, because it's a very dystopian world. And the way I always kind of looked at it was basically like if Middle Earth was eventually taken over by humans, and then they just ruined the whole thing. And it basically became a waste.
One big McDonald's.
What was the name of that one?
That novel, that's Forgotten Prophecies.
Okay.
So, and Path of Darkness is actually a sequel to that one. And I had planned on that one to be a trilogy, and I may one day write the third one, but I don't know. We'll have to see. So I've thought about revamping that one as a comic at some point too, but I'm not 100% sure on what the future holds as far as that goes.
So did you how did you get those published?
So the first one actually, this was, like I said, 2004, 2003. And are you guys familiar with a company called Publish America?
It sounds familiar.
Well, I don't want to bash anybody, but it was not what I thought it was, right? So whenever I got involved with it, it was kind of, I thought that it was a traditional publishing house. It was not a traditional publishing house. It was basically a self-publishing, which at that time, there was a real big stigma against self-publishing. I mean, there's still a little bit in like the literary world, as far as I know, but I didn't realize that at the time. But I mean, anyway, I submitted, they accepted, I ran with it. And I mean, it did pretty well. I mean, not great, right? I think I sold 2,000 copies of it, which is, it's better than a kick in the nuts, so they say, right? But it's, but it's, sorry, I'm assuming it's okay if I cuss.
Yeah.
Cool.
We said much more.
Kicking the nuts is pretty tame for some of the stuff we've heard people say.
Just making sure, so, but so after that one, I mean, it did all right. I got a few good reviews on that, and it was a fun time. It got me into some conventions and gave me a chance to kind of meet some people and do some things. And then when it came time to do the sequel, I kind of just decided to stick with the self-publishing route at that point, and went with a company called Book Locker. And then at that point, I kind of let that, it wasn't really a contract. It was more just kind of like a distribution deal that I signed. And I mean, that makes it sound like more than it is. So basically I paid them to print the book, right? But it was, but it wasn't, but it was a little bit different, because it wasn't like I actually paid anything up front. It was just, they took a cut of whatever.
Every book sold.
Basically, right. Yeah. And I mean, so, but I don't know. So it's difficult to say that I published them. I mean, they're published, right? They're out there. People can buy them. You can get them, right? So technically it's publishing, but I know that when I was at school, that was like, you self-published. Oh my God, how dare you do that, right? That's the kiss of death. You'll never publish for real ever again. And I don't really understand that mentality. I've never really understood that because I mean, my thought process is however it gets out into the light of the day is the way to do it, right?
Do you think it's because you haven't made it past the gatekeepers?
That's absolutely what it is. Yeah. That's absolutely what it is. And it academia, like I wanted to be a creative writing teacher or just a professor in general, right? And it's I don't know. Academia and publishing, I think, are very similar industries in that, and there are definitely gatekeepers. But I feel like that's changing a little bit though, because I think the attitudes are changing on it. And I think that, I mean, hell, and I know this was a long time ago, but Poe self-published, right? I mean, there were lots of authors that are kind of important that self-published, right? So I don't think it's as
should be discredited. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it should be. So.
But even now, like self-publishing is much more common. Like I think majority of authors self-publish just because it's so much easier if Amazon and there's other big companies doing it for you.
Well, and I think that a large part of it too is they have more control and get more. They get more for it, right? You know, they may be selling it for a little bit less, but they get a bigger piece of that pie, right? Than they do from a traditional publisher. And I think that as authors, I mean, most of us are not making any money doing this, right? You know, it's like we're just making enough to
it's a labor of love for most,
right? You know, yeah, it's like I think most people write because they have to. You know, it's like if I don't do this, I'm going to go fucking crazy. So I've got to get this out of my head. You know, and it's at least that's how I feel sometimes. I know if I don't, and it's one of those things where I don't realize it, but like if I don't write or do something creative for a long period, I get squirrely, man. And I'm just kind of out there, and it's like my wife's like, can you go please just go make something, just go do something. Which I'm always obliged to do. So
the sequel, did it leave off to like a spot where like the third one would be a possibility? Do you have people waiting for this third book?
I know there was one guy at least 8 years ago. He
once a week he writes me on Facebook.
We can definitely relate to that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like, come on, man. But I mean, like I said, I haven't heard from him in 8 years probably, but he did email me a couple of times. And eventually I think I remember the last time I was like, listen, man, this is what's going to happen. This is everything, you know, just so you can have the closure. This is what's going to happen.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he was like, thanks, man. That's great. You know, it's like, if you ever need any help, let me know. I was like, all right, cool, dude. I appreciate that. So, but,
and he just killed himself after that.
I hope not. You know, that would be sad. That would be fucking tragic. That would be, man, you may have just ruined my night, dude. Yeah.
He was only living for that third book.
Oh, come on. No, that's not possible. So, but no, it's, as far as I know, but it did end, we'll call it a cliffhanger, right? There was, because like I said, it definitely had, I had plans to write a third book, and I've started it a few times, and I just haven't gotten very far.
Just don't have it in you.
Yeah. I mean, one day maybe, but like I wrote both of those books kind of back to back, and that was a pretty heavy, like 2 years. And I don't know, I kind of got burnt out on it for a little bit. And like I said, I went back to school, and that kind of changed the way I looked at everything. As far as story writing, all of it together.
So you wrote these books before you went back to college for creative writing?
That is correct. Yes.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah.
So, and then I wrote one of them. So the Coward and the Grim, that one came out of a writing prompt from one of my first writing classes.
Okay.
And it was basically, it was like, I think the prompt was, mom walks in and finds the son in the, in her room with his hand in her hidden money jar. You know, why? You know, he turns around and says, she's like, why are you doing that? And he turns around and says, and that's what the prompt was. And my answer was, because the gnomes told me to. And that kind of story kind of came out of that. And that's definitely it's more on like the kids side. I was reading a lot of Neil Gaiman at the time.
Okay.
Especially like, you know, graveyard books, stuff like that. So it was kind of in that.
I'm a big Sandman fan. So.
Oh yeah, dude. That was another one of the big ones from Eric when my early comic book days were Sandman too. And I think that and Pink Floyd was being played. And I think that explains a lot about me these days. So
yeah, I can definitely relate.
Good times, man. Good times.
So, you're a musician also, right?
That is correct. Yes. I have been playing drums longer. I mean, I don't know that I can say longer than I've been writing seriously. I've been playing drums. So I kind of hate to say how old I am, but I've been playing drums seriously for coming up on 30 years now.
Oh, wow. So, so since you were born then?
Yeah, exactly.
in the
Exactly. I
womb counting away.
Came out playing. Yeah. Nah, man, I'm turning 43 at the end of the month. So
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
I started when I was 13. But I did that professionally through so 2005, right after I published my first novel. I decided to quit the corporate job that I hated and was making me miserable. Happened to go to a bar one night and some guys were up on stage playing. It's like an open mic. I got up and started playing and they're like, "Hey man, you're pretty good. We need a drummer. You want to come play?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then that kind of turned into several gigs a week and then turned into, "Oh, hey, I can actually probably make enough that I can kind of support myself in my 20s doing this." Didn't have kids or anything. And then that turned into, I started teaching as well. And I did that for almost 10 years. And it was a lot of fun. Played in a lot of cool bands, played in a lot of cool places all around the Southeast. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Are you a John Zorn fan by any chance?
I am an absolutely huge John Zorn fan.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. Now I can't.
Go ahead.
What gave me away?
I just I listened to the Akashic your Akashic Mysteries album.
Oh, nice. Thanks.
And yeah, it was,
so you're the one.
No, there are a lot of similarities aside, like with the aesthetic and everything.
Yeah, we that project, the bass player in that band is a guy named Ron Hubbard, who everybody was always like, that name sounds familiar. It's not L. Ron Hubbard. It's just Ron Hubbard. But he is a monster bass player. And he and I, we used to play in a band. So we met back in the late 90s. We played together in a band called the Clinically Tested Wicked Cow People, which was basically trying to be Mr. Bungle. We were just all about that band. Trying to, it was like Mr. Bungle and Primus, I guess would probably be the best way to put it. But we were also big Naked City fans. And so we've kind of always been really interested in that, especially instrumental music, partially because I'm not going to say we can't sing. We can, we just choose not to. That doesn't mean that people want to hear it. Right. So that's part of the reason we don't. Right. But yeah, we're big Zorn fans. Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I've listened to everything that he does because I mean, my God, who's got that kind of time, right? But yeah, I love him. Especially, and actually, because of Zorn, I discovered one of my absolute favorite drummers, and nobody cares. I'm going off on a tangent here, but Joey Barron. This guy named Joey Barron. He's a jazz drummer, but he's played with Bowie. He's played with all kinds of people, and he is absolutely the best drummer you've never heard of. As far as I know, he's one of the only guys that will go out and set up a drum set and will sell out a room for people to come out and listen to him play because he is just so amazingly musical and he's awesome. If you haven't heard him,
awesome.
Go check him out. He is amazing.
You said Joey Barron?
Yep, Barron, Baron. Yep.
Now, you still actively play?
I do. COVID has obviously slowed us way down. Back around Thanksgiving, I got really kind of heavily addicted to TikTok for a while, doing duets and stuff like that. Cause I was just going fucking crazy. But we've all been vaccinated and we're starting to kind of slowly get back in the room together. Cause Ron and I, so Akashic Mysteries fell apart several years ago as bands typically do. Right. But that stuff, absolutely go check it out. There's some really killer shit on that. We, that the lineup on, I'm going to plug that for real quick if that's okay. But we had Aicha Yaman, who was primarily oboe playing on that, but she did a little bit of saxophone as well too. And then we had Sean O'Connell, who it sounds like guitar, but it's actually electric mandolin. And he's just, all of the musicians in that band were just amazing. It was so much fun to play with them. But bands fall apart, they move on, and that one did. And but Ron and I have started a new one now. I don't know that we've settled on the name, but we have been calling it the Triadic Order. And it's a little more, we've got some stuff out on Bandcamp, I think is where I've got it. Yeah, that sounds right. I'll have to double check that. But we're calling it Doom Jazz, for lack of a better term. Because it's definitely got one foot in like metal, right? And kind of sludgier kind of metal. But it's slow, groovy, and 98% improvised, right? So
That's awesome.
It's a lot of fun, man. We really enjoy that group.
Have you listened to like the Moonchild Trio stuff at all with Mike
I have.
Patton and all that?
Oh yeah, that stuff. And actually, if you've listened to that, you've listened to Joey Barron.
Oh yeah, he's the drummer on there.
Yep,
I love all of that stuff. It's so cool. Like with Mike Patton's vocals are just amazing on that.
I've come to the realization that I almost don't listen to anything but Mike Patton bands. It's kind of sad in a way, like, cause it's like I went from the new Mr. Bungle that came out in October, and I swear I felt like I listened to that for 6 months straight, and then all of a sudden I'm into the new Tomahawk now. And there's been stuff in between, but the new Tomahawk's pretty badass. I don't know if you've listened to that yet.
I haven't. I didn't know that came out. That's cool.
It came out 3 weeks ago, I think, something like that. So that's it. If you like that band, some people do. Some people do. I like it. But yeah, Patton, he can get a little too weird for me at times. I'll be honest. And I was like, especially some of his solo stuff got a little too out there for me. But it's rare that I come across something that he's done that I don't like it. I mean, it has to be really fucking out there for me to not like it. You know what I'm saying? Like I just go back to it. I'm like, yeah, it's like, there was a period where I literally thought anything that he put out was absolute fucking gold. Like during especially like during like the Lovage years, like when that came out, and the General Patton versus the Executioners.
Okay.
That one. Have you listened to that one?
I'm not familiar, but.
Oh. You should go check that out, man. That's a good record. That one's really good. It's him and 3 DJs, and so it's like it's fucking awesome. Just go check it out. But but last one of those though. How about Nevermin? Have you guys listened to Nevermin?
Mm-mm.
No.
I haven't.
That's so that's Patton, Dose One, and I can never. This is awful. I can never remember the dude's name, but it's the dude from TV on the Radio. That album's fucking amazing too. If you haven't listened to that one, I don't nothing else, but between now and whatever, just go listen to that album right now because it's fucking awesome.
Can you mention it again?
It's called The Nevermen.
Nevermen.
Nevermen, and it's just self-titled.
So I'm not really that big into music. I mean, I like music. I'm not like a big music nerd like you guys. So this is what it feels like for Seamus when I'm talking comics with someone. Yeah. It's interesting hearing you guys talk about it because you guys are so enthusiastic about it. Like you guys have a lot of passion. But it's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Are you talking English? Are these words? Like I know they're words, but like, what does it mean? But no, it's really cool that you guys are so into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, and I'm probably a bigger music nerd than I'm just a big nerd, man. I've just been a big nerd and my whole life, and it's cool.
So you're doing like you said that your new project is like 8% improvised.
Yeah. Right now, I mean, we're kind of taking the same model that we had with the Akashic Mysteries. So like when we did a live show there, we had probably 75% rehearsed material and then 25% improvised, right? But we're wanting to try to take this to where it's kind of flipping that to where it's 75 improvised, 25 prepared. And the way we're kind of looking at it, we are trying to kind of look at it from a jazz standpoint too, where basically we go in and we've got a form, we've got an ABA, we're going to play this many bars, that many bars, then we're going to solo over it, then we're going to go out, right? But while it's going to be a jazz arrangement, it's going to be like a metal riff or, something. Again, we're pretty groovy. Like I'm not really a metal drummer, right? I actually, so the first time I went to school, I went to school twice, right? The first time I went to school, actually I went to school more than that. I dropped out a lot. But the first time I went to school was for jazz. And I did about 2 years on a jazz degree. And so that took a lot of the rock out of me, which, I mean, it's still there. And it's like, I've always kind of been a little too rock for the jazz guys and a little too jazz for the rock guys, So I've started playing in bands like this where we're kind of blending the two, and it's taken me 20 years, but I've found other people that want to do that too, right? So that's not true. Like I said, I've been in a lot of bands that have kind of done the same thing, but yeah, I mean, it's basically we'll come in and either Ron will have a riff, or I mean, hell, half the time I just start playing something. It's like, here's the groove. What do you guys want to do? And then Jason, but I mean, it's like, so this is maybe going to sound stupid, but so like Ron and I, years ago, I mean, goddamn, 20 years ago, probably, I don't know. We've been playing together for fucking ever. But he and I were in a band that played every Saturday night in this little dive bar in the old city in Knoxville. And it was us, a girl that sang and played violin, and a keyboard. But the thing was, almost every week we had a different keyboardist. Like it was almost never the same guy, right? We had like 3 or 4 people that would kind of rotate, but it was never, so it was a very different experience every week, right? But we had this one guy that would come back in pretty often, and he started referring to us as the psychic rhythm section, because we just, like from day one that he and I have played together, like we've just, are you a musician? I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how sometimes when you play with people, there's just like an immediate connection.
Yeah.
And there's other people you're like, I don't know where you're from. You're not speaking the same language as me. We're never going to be able to play together, right? It's just, I've met people like that. But Ron and I, it's just from day one, it's just been, we just speak the same language, right? We just know where each other's coming from. We don't even have to think. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to change now. Oh yeah, now we're going halftime. Oh no, now we're going double time. You know, it's like, we don't even have to look at each other. We just know what's happening, right? And the real cool thing is that Jason, the guy that's playing guitar with us now, has that same connection. And he's really the first person that we've had in this situation that has kind of had that same connection. And so I get really excited thinking about it, because it's like, man, we just, you know, it's just so much fun. It's just like, you know, I mean, I'm not the first person to say this, but we're just having conversations. You know, we're not talking, but we're having conversations with music, you know, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool when you can connect on that level too. Like I know too, like the amount of just the amount of like that you're able to develop when you're playing with other people is so much more than when you're just playing by yourself, you know. Like it's that's something I definitely miss.
It is kind of like a social thing and all with music. Like that's what's interesting.
It's also it's a co-creative experience too. I mean, it's like, because
you're ripping off each other. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's, you know, we used to always talk about it too. It's like, if you want to get better, go find somebody that is better than you and play with them. Right. You know, and it's like and it's, you know, it's that rising to the occasion. You're kind of, you know, it's like you're having a conversation, right? You know, as you're talking to somebody, you kind of, hopefully you can jump in and contribute something. And then it grows as you said, a co-creative thing. Right. And that's how we look at music, really. It's just, we're just having conversations, you know, and it's a blast, dude. I mean, because it's, you know, if you're doing it right, you know, it's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like you're opening a portal to another world, you know.
Yeah,
it's like,
definitely.
It's awesome, man. So I would do it all day if I could.
Yeah.
So what about like your music friends though? Like how do they take your comic book career? Like they don't like really treat you any differently, or they give you shit for it?
I mean, I don't even know how many of them are all that aware of it, to be honest with you. I mean, I know some of them do, you know, like Ron, he's also a big comic nerd too. So, you know, he was pretty supportive. And I mean, most everybody that knows about it is very supportive, you know. But I mean, I don't know. Like I've got some people that I'll run into every now and again. Like this guy I used to play in a band with, I ran into him just randomly at a park like 3 weeks ago. He's like, still writing? You still writing? I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm writing some comics. And he kind of gave me the, oh, not novels kind of look. And it's like, yeah.
Oh, what happened? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh man, you
that self-publishing didn't work out for you.
Exactly. Right. It's like, shit, man. But no, I mean, it doesn't really, those worlds don't really overlap too often. You know, like I said, most of the comics world has been almost entirely online. And I mean, it's weird because I used to do conventions for the, you know, like the sci-fi conventions and stuff back in the mid 2000s. But since I've been doing the comics, I mean, I've got kids. I'm not in a position to be able to travel and do stuff like that like I used to. So it's, like I said, it's mostly online these days, right? So I'm trying to talk to people like you guys I mean, we're online right now, right?
Yeah.
So.
There we are. Yeah.
What are some of your current goals like for the upcoming year or so? Like what are you actively working on, like project wise?
So I've got something that's kind of in the works that I can't really talk about yet.
Yeah,
It's not official yet, but it's pretty close, and hopefully I'm going to be able to talk about it pretty soon. And that's taking up a lot of my time right now, and I'm really excited about it. And
what was it? Is it music? Is it comics? Like
this is another comic actually.
Okay.
And it's it's
you
gonna
don't
be
have to
awesome.
go into details and all, but yeah, okay,
yeah.
that's cool.
But it'll
is it
be
another web series?
It's another web series.
Okay.
And it's going to be I liken this one to Mad Max meets, I feel like I say this all the time. It's like if Middle Earth got put into the Mad Max world, basically. It's a fantasy, it's a post-apocalyptic fantasy story, and it's one of mine. It's something that I created, and I am really excited and hope it gets to go through, but I'm going to stop talking now because I don't want to.
Yeah.
Yes. But that, and then, I'm still working with the Triadic Order. We're putting stuff, trying to get stuff moving again.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing, so like I said earlier, I've been doing TikTok. I started doing for those, we've been doing a few like live streams just for fun here and there. So watch for me on TikTok. You might see the Triadic Order playing, usually on a Sunday or Saturday afternoon. But other than that, I'm just going to keep playing music and writing comics and, try not to go crazy.
And so for Pound, you're on season 3. Do you have like a rough idea how many seasons you guys have left in you, like a ballpark or?
Well, I'll just go ahead and spill the beans. This is actually our final season. So
okay.
Yeah, we did actually find out at the beginning of season 3 that this was going to be our last one. So the end of this season will be the end of that arc. The way that, I don't want to spoil it, but basically that's going to wrap up at the end of this season. And then, we'll see what happens. There's a possibility, depending on what goes down, that we might do more down the road. And there's who knows,
spin-offs kind of thing.
Exactly. Because the way that one of the things that we've always tried to do with Pound is, for me, especially, the world was as much a character as the characters.
Mm-hmm.
While Pound is told very much through the lens of the main protagonist, Leo, we tried to create a world that had enough backstory that there could be spinoffs. And we even have a couple of interludes at the end of the first season. So I actually came on at the end of the first season and wrote the last 4 episodes, and they were all 4 kind of, there were 2. No, that's right. There were 4 standalone, 3 standalone episodes that were basically spinoffs. And so we're trying to set the stage for that, to where if we want to explore more of that world, we can. But it won't be anytime soon with webtoons after this season. So, which is a little sad to say, but it is what it is. All things must end.
Now, was it? I don't know if you want to go into this. Was it webtoons canceling you, or was it like just you and Orlando deciding this is the end?
Well, no, we actually got canceled. And
Okay.
Honestly, I think it kind of comes down to viewership. We do all right. We've got about 89,000 subscribers. We average, in the first week, we usually average about 900 to 1,000 likes per episode, which is, not nothing at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, for me to think that there's that many people reading us each week and like it enough to hit the like button, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But some of those webtoons have millions of subscribers.
Oh, wow.
And hundreds of thousands of likes. So, there is some serious traffic on that site. So I don't want to justify it. I don't want to say, it's webtoons' fault, because it's absolutely not their fault. But I think that part of the problem is that, like we said, kind of before we started, if people don't come in on a series at the very beginning, it tends not to carry on, right? Like that, it's hard to pick up kind of in the middle, I guess. And so we have been trying to get more people out there to read it and see it, but it's hard to get people to, if they're not already on webtoons, it's kind of hard to get people to webtoons, because I've been really kind of amazed at how many people don't know about it, especially comic readers. And again, it's like, it's more, I guess it's more towards the manga side than like the Western comics. And that might be where the separation is, but it's free comics in your pocket that you can take with you everywhere. And we should be reading it, right? Like it's a great platform. It really is. And I think that I feel like it's growing, right? And I feel like they are starting to kind of realize how much of a Western audience they have. And I feel like they're starting to develop more properties to kind of cater towards that. So I'm anxious to see where it goes in the next few years. And it's going to be a really cool platform.
Yeah, because I have always known it as like that manga type or like more shorter type comics, like
Right.
a Dilbert type comic, like a 3-panel kind of thing. And then when I saw yours, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know this type of comic was on here. Like, so I guess that shows.
And
like it's
there's
just,
all kinds of stuff like that on there, man. And some of them are like, I feel like we're one of the shorter series
okay.
because we kind of usually come in around 40 panel mark. But I've read some that are as many as 80, 90 panels.
Oh, wow.
Right. There's one that I've been reading right now called Omniscient Reader, which is actually, it was a South Korean comic that got translated. And it's probably the first one that I've come across on that where I'm like, ooh, I cannot wait to read this one. Right. A lot of them was just kind of like, oh, that was cool. The art was awesome, but it wasn't my favorite thing or whatever. But that one's, the story's awesome. I mean, I don't really go check it out. Just go check it out. I mean, the basic gist of it is that you've got, the protagonist is reading an online web novel, a serialized web novel. And it's gotten to the point where he's basically the only person that's been reading it for the last 3,000 episodes. Right. And when he gets to the final episode, the author sends him a message right before it goes live. And he says, get ready. And whenever it goes live, basically the world ends. But everything that's happening is what the reader read. So he knows all of the characters. He knows what's getting ready to happen. And so he's got a level of omniscience that allows him to kind of interact with this world. And it basically you learn this pretty quickly, but basically it's like our world is a video game interface. And that's kind of what he's dealing with. And it's I mean, it really is a smart story and it's a lot of fun. I mean, if nothing else, check that one out. It's kind of a mind fuck at times.
All right. Yeah, no, it sounds pretty gnarly. Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Are you planning on working on anything else besides comics, like TV, movies, any other type of writing?
I have a couple of screenplay ideas that I've been kind of kicking around. I would love to do something like that. But honestly, it's not something I really plan on actively pursuing at this point. I'm pretty content writing comics. I'd like to maybe move into doing some print, because at this point, all I've really done is web. And I mean, right now I'm cool with that, but I wouldn't mind doing something to actually hold in my hand at some point too. But I'm open to whatever, man, at this point. So
what'll be like your dream one to work on? You want like Batman, or you want to do Spider-Man? Like
Spider-Man, dude. Spider-Man. Yeah, dude, Spider-Man. But I mean, I always really liked the idea of the Green Lantern.
Okay.
I never really liked I can't really say that I was a huge Green Lantern fan. Just because I never really liked Hal, I never really liked Kyle. I mean, I read them, but like I like the idea of the core more than anything else. So something like that, like some sort of offshoot, but that would be a lot of fun to write on too. But no, man, if I could write Spider-Man, anything Spider-Man, it could even be. It didn't even have to be a main Spider-Man title, right? that would be.
What would you do for Spider-Man? Like, what would be your big thing? Let's spoil a little bit.
I don't know, like, so I know this has been done before, but one of the things that I've always kind of really liked the idea of is, and this is probably because I'm getting older, but I've always liked the idea of playing around with the Mary Jane and Peter dynamic with a child.
Okay.
Especially a child that inherits the powers. But I want to address it when the child is like baby and toddler era, like very, very, very young. And that wouldn't be necessarily a basis for an entire series, obviously. But I think there'd be some cool stuff to do there. Somebody else that I would love to write, and I don't really have any specific story ideas, but and I'm not a huge DC fan, and it's funny that I've listed 2 DC people here, but fucking Mr. Miracle. I don't know what it is about that character, but part of it, I don't know. So did you guys, how old are you guys?
We're 30. Yeah, we're turning 32.
31.
Okay,
yeah.
so I got about 10 years on you. But so back in the probably late 80s, early 90s, there was the Justice League America and Justice League Europe. Well, it was just Justice League and Justice League Europe, right? And they were not like what we think of when we think of like JLA or, you know, like that, where it's like, you know, big, massive world events where you got to bring them all together. It was them hanging
characters.
Well, and it was them hanging out at the embassy. And like, I always thought of it, it was like Seinfeld with superheroes, basically, because they were comics about nothing happened except just shenanigans, right? But it was fucking hilarious, man. I mean, it was great. Those things were awesome. But Mr. Miracle I read that at that time period too, and it was written very much in that same kind of vein of comedy. And it was just all this just weird, zany shit happening, but funny at the same time. And I always really liked that about those comics. So I'd like to do something like that. I think that's what I like about Spider-Man too, is the humor. You know, it's, you know, there's that nice, he got monsters and stuff that he's fighting, but he's also, you know, cracking wise the whole time.
Yeah.
It's just
running his mouth.
Exactly. Right. You know, sometimes he's funny, sometimes he's not, but it's a good time.
All right. Seamus, do you have any final questions?
Yeah. What's your favorite jazz drummer?
Joey Barron. Well, I mean, Joey Barron, he's technically a jazz drummer, but are you talking about like old school?
Yeah, old school stuff. So it's something you probably learned like when you were doing your jazz degree.
Tony Williams was badass. I like Art Blakey a lot too. Probably in the mode that you're thinking, probably Blakey would be my pick. That's a tough call, man. Billy Joe is badass too. I don't know. There's a lot of them. I'll go with those guys for right now. So.
Awesome.
So one of the other, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
So one of the other last questions we normally ask is any words of wisdom you would give someone that either wants to start their career in comics or writing or music? Anything you could like to share to them, that something you wish you would have got?
The first thing that I would say is don't wait. Like just do it. Just start doing it. Like I was bad for a long time about putting up reasons why I couldn't do it right now. Right. And I figured out that those were all bullshit. And I'm just much happier when I just go ahead and do it. Something else that I would like to also throw out there too, Reddit. My God, Reddit is a godsend, right? Because I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for Reddit, really. Because, you know, like I said, when I first started doing this, what I read was you got to write something else, right? And it felt like there were gatekeepers in comics world as well too, right? But one day I stumbled across the Comic Book Collab subreddit, and if you want to make comics, go hang out there. There are all kinds of great people there. I mean, you will absolutely meet somebody that's going to help you with your next project or your first project or whatever, or just give you advice even. And that's in the comics world, especially. I have found that people that make comics want to help other people that make comics, because I feel like we just all want there to be more comics, right? You know, so it's been really supportive and it's been awesome. And anyway, so I don't know if those are words of wisdom necessarily, but that's what I got. So
yeah, that's good.
It's funny because this podcast for us tonight was because of Reddit. Like I found you posting on Reddit. So
right.
It's actually,
I'm telling you, man, it's the backbone of the 21st century, right? So
and I absolutely hate it. I hate Reddit so much. It does nothing but give me, it angers the fuck out of me. It irritates me, but it's like one of those things I just have to deal with. Like, yep, this is just grin and bear it.
Exactly. Just go through it. Right. But I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, I only hate it when I engage in the comments, right? It's like, just why did I comment? I knew better. Like you can't correct the internet. You just can't. Just let it go, right? But yeah, I have to remind myself, like once every 6 months, I'll get into it. It's like, just stop. You have better things to do with your time, right? So, but yeah, Reddit, love it and hate it.
Tony, it's been an absolute blast having you on the podcast this evening. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
Where can our listeners find more of you and your work at?
So if you want to read the Pound web series, that is exclusively on webtoons.com. And you can find me on Twitter, Reddit, pretty much all of them except Facebook at Antrykar, Antrykar. Follow me, say hi, stop by. If you want to listen to music, I have got several groups. One of them is Citizen X, which is also very avant-garde. And the Akashic Mysteries, both of those are available on any streaming service, Spotify, Apple, whatever you name it. And then the new band, Triadic Order, we've got some stuff up for free on bandcamp.com. But that's about all we got right now. Cool. You can always find me at tonykarnowski.com too, and that links to pretty much everything that I've got.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. It's been an absolute
Yeah,
pleasure.
we're really enjoyed talking to you. It's been great.
No,
You're
same
cool as
here,
fuck.
man. Thanks, man. You guys too. This has been awesome. So I love this. This is badass. I really appreciate this.